The sea was silent that night. A faint mist drifted across the surface as the research vessel Neptune's shadow prepared for its dive. The moon was a pale slice in the black sky, its reflection rippling across the waves like liquid glass. Below deck, 3 crew members checked their equipment one last time. Dr. Mark Evans, a marine biologist with years of experience studying deep-sea life, adjusted his oxygen tank. He'd dreamed of exploring the ocean's darkest regions, where no human had ever gone. Beside him was Sophie Lane, a sonar and communications expert, young, sharp, and quietly nervous. She'd been hearing strange reports about this location for weeks. Dead fish floating near the trench, malfunctioning sonar, whispers of an ancient ruin beneath the sea. The pilot, Alex Monroe, was calm and focused. His hands rested confidently on the submarine's controls. "Ready to descend?" he asked, breaking the tension. Mark nodded. "Let's make history tonight." The small submersible, the Abyss Diver, was released into the ocean. At first everything was calm. Gentle waves rocked the craft as it sank below the surface. Blue turned to dark blue turned to black. Light disappeared completely, swallowed by the endless abyss. Inside the sub, only the cold hum of machinery and the rhythmic beeping of the sonar filled the silence. "Depth, 3,000 meters, Alex reported. "Everything's stable," Sophie replied, staring at the sonar screen. "But I'm getting movement." "Movement?" Mark leaned closer. "Could be a whale." "No," she whispered. "Too deep for whales." The sonar pinged again. Blip, blip, blip. Something massive was moving just outside their visibility range. The floodlights flicked on, cutting through the murk. The beams illuminated swirling clouds of sediment and faint shapes moving just beyond the light's edge. The radio crackled suddenly. Static. Then a low voice, distant, almost like a whisper carried through water. "Turn back." Mark froze. "Did you hear that?" Alex frowned. "Interference, probably from the surface." But Sophie shook her head. That wasn't from the surface. The pressure gauge clicked. A loud metallic groan echoed through the hull. Something was touching the sub. "External contact," Alex said, gripping the controls. "Something's brushing the hull." Through the side portholes, Sophie saw it first, a pale, translucent tentacle gliding across the window. Veins glowed beneath its skin, pulsing with blue light like electricity underwater. "Oh my God," she gasped. Mark turned the camera toward it. The tentacle vanished, swallowed by darkness. A low vibration rolled through the sub, like a growl from the ocean itself. "Depth, 4,700 meters, Alex whispered. "We're near the trench." Outside, the blackness seemed to move. Shapes twisted and shifted in the water, like shadows swimming against the current. The sonar pinged faster. Blip, 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 blip. Then, silence. Everything stopped. Even the ocean around them felt still. Mark turned to Sophie. "We're not alone down here." The silence inside the Abyss Diver was unbearable. The only sound was the faint hum of oxygen flow and the ticking of pressure gauges. Outside the windows there was nothing but a heavy black void, a darkness so deep it almost felt alive. "Depth, 5,000 meters, Alex muttered, eyes locked on the instruments. The lights flickered once. Then again. Mark glanced at the monitor showing the camera feed from outside. Static, only static. "System glitch?" he asked. Sophie shook her head. "No, it's something else. The feed's being interfered with." Suddenly, bang! A thunderous impact echoed through the sub, rattling every bolt and joint. The entire cabin shook violently. "What the hell was that?" Sophie cried out, clutching her seat. Alex checked the sensors. "Something hit us. Hard. But I'm not seeing it on sonar." Another impact. Thud! Thud! The metal walls groaned under pressure. One of the gauges burst, spraying mist into the cabin. Mark shouted, "Bring the lights to full power." Alex hit the switch. The floodlights flared to life, and for one horrifying second they saw it. Outside the sub, a monstrous figure floated in the dark. Its skin was pale and rubbery, covered with long glowing marks that looked like ancient symbols. Its mouth, if it could be called that, stretched across its entire face, filled with needle-like teeth that moved even when it wasn't feeding. Sophie gasped, her voice trembling. It's not an animal. It's something else." The creature pressed closer, its single massive eye staring into the cabin. The crew felt its presence, cold, ancient, intelligent. It knew they were there. Without warning, it slammed its tentacles against the sub again. One of the lights shattered, plunging half the cabin into darkness. "Power's dropping!" Alex yelled. Engines offline. Mark stumbled toward the console. Emergency ascent, now! I'm trying! Alex shouted back, twisting the controls, but the sub wouldn't respond. The depth alarm screamed. They were still sinking. Then the radio hissed to life again, static. Then a whisper. You shouldn't have come here. Sophie clutched her headset. Who's speaking? Identify yourself. A faint, distorted voice replied, leave or drown with us. The transmission cut off. The creature's shadow passed over the viewport again. Something strange began to happen. The walls of the sub shimmered, and for a brief moment, Sophie saw faces in the reflection of the glass. Hundreds of faces, distorted, screaming silently. She screamed, Mark, the walls! There are faces in the walls! Mark looked and saw them too. For a second, the metal looked like flesh, pulsing as if alive. The lights flickered and the sonar started pinging uncontrollably. Hundreds of signals surrounding them. There's more than one, Alex shouted. We're surrounded! Tentacles whipped across the hull, scraping the metal, wrapping around the sub like vines. The pressure increased. The structure creaked. Pressure's climbing! She's not going to hold! Sophie cried. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The sub went still. The sonar fell silent. Alex whispered, What just happened? Mark leaned toward the window. Outside, the darkness had changed. Faint lights now glimmered below them, flickering like candles in the deep. Sophie squinted. Those looked like buildings. Far beneath them, the shape of a sunken city appeared. Towers, arches, statues, all covered in coral and glowing algae. Mark stared, awestruck. We're not at the bottom of a trench. We've found a city. Sophie whispered, trembling. Then what are they? The sub began drifting downward, slowly toward the glowing ruins. The ocean around the abyss diver shimmered faintly now, faint blues and greens illuminating the deep. The sub drifted slowly, descending into what looked like the remains of an ancient city, hidden for millennia beneath the sea. Mark pressed his face close to the window, eyes wide. Unbelievable. Columns, statues. It's like something from another world, Sophie whispered, or another time. Massive stone towers jutted from the seabed, covered in coral and bioluminescent moss. Cracked domes and broken archways stretched out as far as they could see. Symbols, ancient, alien, and pulsating faintly with blue light, were carved into every surface. Alex muttered, This isn't on any map. Nothing like this exists down here. The sonar stayed quiet now, too quiet. It was as if the creatures had vanished, but all three felt it, that they were being watched. The radio hissed suddenly. A distorted voice whispered, Don't wake it. Sophie turned, eyes wide. Mark, did you hear that? Mark nodded slowly. Record everything. This could be proof of an ancient civilization. They maneuvered the sub closer to the ocean floor. The lights revealed enormous stone faces, half-buried, cracked, yet lifelike. Their eyes were hollow, but somehow they seemed to follow the sub as it moved. Sophie zoomed the external camera on one of the carvings. Her breath caught. The symbols, they're changing. What do you mean? Mark asked. They're glowing brighter, like reacting to us. The entire seabed rumbled faintly. Dust and debris rose into the water like smoke. Alex gripped the controls. Earthquake? Mark shook his head. No, something else. As they hovered closer to the largest structure, a gigantic temple carved into the rocks, the temperature sensors began to spike. Heat, Alex said in disbelief. At this depth? Inside the temple's cracked archway, a dim golden glow appeared, like fire flickering deep inside. Sophie stared at the monitors, whispering, It's like something's alive in there. Mark switched on the external mic. A deep, echoing hum filled the cabin, rhythmic, almost like chanting. The sound grew louder. Suddenly, a massive shape moved within the temple. A single, glowing eye opened. The entire city seemed to breathe. The statues trembled, cracks spreading through their stone faces. Glowing veins of light ran through the ground, across the temple, and out toward the sub. Sophie screamed, Mark, the readings are spiking. Something's waking up. Before they could react, a massive pulse of energy shot out from the temple, slamming into the sub. Lights exploded. Alarms shrieked. The screens went white. Alex yelled, We've lost navigation. We're blind. The sub began spinning, tumbling through the water. The force threw them against the walls. Everything flickered red as systems failed one by one. Through the chaos, Mark caught one final glimpse through the viewport. The temple's roof had cracked open. Something vast and serpentine was rising out of it, covered in shifting scales, each one bearing an eye that blinked independently. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of transparent teeth, and from within came a low, guttural sound. Not a roar, but a whisper that filled their minds. "Return what you took," Mark gasped. "It's speaking." Sophie's eyes widened in horror. "Mark, look at the hull!" Strange glowing symbols began to burn into the sub's outer shell, the same markings that covered the ruins. The sub wasn't just caught in an energy field, it was being marked. The hum became a scream, 1,000 voices overlapping, ancient and furious. The ocean around them came alive. The statues began to move, arms of stone stretching toward the sub. Alex tried to fire the thrusters, but the controls were dead. "Nothing's responding," Mark whispered. "We have to cut power, everything. Maybe it'll stop noticing us." He flipped the main breaker. Darkness consumed the cabin. Only the faint, golden glow from outside remained, pulsing in time with the beating of something colossal beneath them. Then, in the dark, Sophie whispered, trembling, "Mark, I think the city's not just ruins." He turned to her. "What do you mean?" "It's alive." "Would you like me to Darkness filled the cabin of the abyss diver. Every light was dead, every display silent. Only the faint vibration of the deep surrounded them, like a heartbeat echoing through the metal walls. Sophie's voice trembled in the pitch black. "Mark, are you still there?" "I'm here," he whispered back. "Stay calm." Alex's shaky breathing echoed. "Power's gone. Backup's dead too. We're drifting." A faint glow seeped through the portholes, gold and blue, swirling together outside like liquid fire. The symbols on the submarine's hull were still glowing, burning slowly into the metal. Sophie looked out and froze. "They're moving, the statues, they're moving closer." Mark turned to look. The massive stone figures that surrounded the ruins were now rising from the seabed. Some were cracked, half destroyed, but they walked, dragging their heavy forms through the dark water. Their eyes glowed the same blue as the symbols. Alex muttered, "They're coming for us." A low sound, a deep, guttural rumble rolled through the ocean. The seafloor trembled. Dust clouds filled the water. Then the voice came again. This time it wasn't through the radio. It was inside their heads. Open quote, "You have disturbed the sleeper. Now you will join the drowned." Close quote. Sophie clutched her head, screaming, "Get it out! Get it out of my mind!" Mark held her shoulders, panicking. "Focus! Focus on my voice." Through the viewport, the temple's entrance split apart, revealing an enormous glowing abyss, a swirling pit of light and darkness mixed together. From it, the creature emerged fully. It was vast, far larger than the city itself, its body made of shadow and translucent flesh, filled with pulsing veins of light. Thousands of eyes blinked across its surface, each moving independently. Its tentacles reached out and wrapped around the ancient buildings, crushing stone like sand. Alex whispered, trembling, "It's a god." Mark shook his head. "No, it's something older than gods." The creature's gaze fell on the sub. The glow intensified. The ocean seemed to boil. "Power! Come back! Come on!" Alex muttered, frantically hitting controls. The lights flickered. Then, miraculously, a few systems reactivated. "We've got partial power!" he shouted. Mark yelled, "Full reverse! Get us out!" The engines roared weakly. The sub began to rise, groaning under the immense pressure. But as it ascended, one of the glowing tentacles lashed out, wrapping around the hull. Metal screamed as the creature pulled them back toward the pit. Sophie cried, "It's dragging us down." Mark grabbed the emergency lever. "Explosive bolts! I'll detach the lower section." "Mark, if you do that, we'll lose ballast control," Alex shouted. "We'll lose everything if we don't." Mark pulled the lever. A deafening boom shook the sub. The lower compartment blasted free, tearing the tentacle loose. The sub shot upwards, spiraling through the darkness. The creature roared, a sound so deep it shook the ocean itself. Statues crumbled. The glowing city began to collapse. Sophie watched in horror as the ruins vanished into a swirling whirlpool of golden light. "It's pulling everything down." Alex pushed the engines to full thrust. "Hold on!" They broke through the collapsing debris field, pieces of ancient stone and bone raining past the windows. The pressure alarms screamed. The hull was seconds from rupture. "Come on! Come on!" Alex yelled. The creature's shadow rose behind them, enormous, endless, reaching upward with one last strike. A flash of light filled the cabin. Then silence. 12 hours later. The ocean surface was calm again. A search vessel drifted quietly under the morning sun. A sonar operator looked up from his monitor. "Sir, we're picking up debris." They pulled up a twisted fragment of metal, half of the abyss diver's hull. On it, strange glowing symbols pulsed faintly before fading into darkness. The vessel's captain frowned. "Any sign of survivors?" "None, sir." That night, as the ship anchored off the coast, several crew members swore they saw faint blue lights glowing beneath the waves, deep, deep below. And when the wind was quiet, they could hear it, a faint whisper rising from the sea. Open quote, "The sleeper still dreams."